Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's March 26th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it's good to be back today. It's kind of nice to be back to a normal routine. My wife is healing up. She's still got a ways to go, but she's getting better. So uh, for now, it's kind of business as usual, unless something changes. If it does, I'll of course let everybody know. But I appreciate all the prayers, all the well wishes, and so forth. But she's doing good. So um, looks like there's been a little volatility while I was gone. Had a little volatility today. Had to back way out to get all this in. But as you can see, we had a leg up, a correction, then another leg up. I believe we got much more than a measured move. But if you measure this first leg, which is basically from there to there, and then you drag this over to where we started higher again, you can see that would have been our target, minimum target, and we went quite a bit higher than that. So I'm guessing if you probably measure this whole move up, I usually don't like to go into the previous days, but if the pattern does, then there's no reason you can't. Um, and you can see when you use that, we still went higher than that. So it was a really nice up move today. Had a pretty good trend down. Looked like we were going to end up with a range day, but notice we got a little bit more than a 50% correction here, and then it was back to the highs again. So once we started going higher again, I would have started looking for that measured move. But let's back out a little more, talk about the trades, and we'll move forward here. You had to be a little patient this morning. When I came in, we were really working up, and back down here. And it looked like we were going to get a little reversal pattern, but it really never played out. You really didn't get a chance to go short here. No real decent setup to go short. But we had a little trend working down, close outside, move to a new low, and it reversed. And notice how we pushed right through that EMA. You got a first entry short, then a little correction, second entry short, and it failed, and we turned up. And so there's a second entry long there, a failed second entry short there, and we had a little trend line working up. That's the first close outside. So I like going long there. And when it comes back and fails again, I like adding on there again, or if you're already out, jumping back in right there. So that turns out to be a really nice move up. And then we just started kind of going sideways, and there's really maybe one entry here. But notice we've already had a close outside this trend line, and now you already had a couple legs up, then that correction, and then you end up with, there's basically your first move up, and then there's your second one. So you got two measured legs now. So you'd expect a little bit of a correction, but sometimes if the market's strong, that correction might only be, some sideways movement for an hour or so. And so you got to be real careful here about getting long or short. You really want a good setup to get short, but we ended up just kind of going sideways. So there's a second entry long here. That's a fairly, that's not a great, let me back out where this is a little bit small here. That's a relatively bullish bar. It's not a perfect bar by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a second entry long. It is a double bottom here with a little break lower, so to speak. So you would expect it to probably test this high and maybe test the overall high again. So you might enter there. It was tempting here, but now you're right back into that last high. That's a huge bar. And if you enter there, you would have just got stuck. And so there is a failed second entry long here, but you got to go short right into those lows. And again, I don't recommend that. And so I'd really want to wait on a better setup. You get another touch here, but the bar's too, it's a little breakout pullback short, but the bar's too bullish. This next bar even has got so much stem and it's bouncing there. So again, you need to just wait. And notice we make a new low, and then you get a first entry short, and then you get a second entry short right off the EMA. A relatively small bar, not a perfect bar by any means, but it's small. It's relatively bearish. It's a second entry. It's off the EMA. If you draw, and I draw a trend line off those first two, because a lot of times you'll drop down and get this is too steep, so you might get a little spike in channel here which is what that turns out to be. But this turns out to be a nice trade. It's a nice second entry short, and the bottom just falls out of it, and it just keeps going. There's a little break, another little break higher here, but too bullish of a bar. You got to go short right at the low. You just got to skip that one. And then we bounce again. We actually get a couple of closes outside. We try to go higher again. It fails, and that's a nice bearish bar. We're still well below the EMA. This was the first break of this little short-term channel with one leg down, so we may get another leg just like that. This is also a second entry short. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry. So for that reason, I really like that one. It's a lower high too after a break of this one, and we're probably going to test the low at a minimum, but we may continue to go lower. You just never know. So this turns out to be another nice move down. And again, I would have looked for a possible measured move just like that one. We didn't quite get there, as you can see, but that still was a really nice move down. And of course, when it bounced right here, I would have drawn my trend line off of these lows, and you might have had it a little lower, like so. But it does run down to that trend line, and that's just a clone of this line up here. Just copy that line and drag it down to the lows, and you can see that it does bounce there. And then we were working higher. You get a first entry short, a close outside that trend line, a little push higher, and then a second entry short right there with a nice bearish bar right where that trend line is. You get what looks like a little bit of a close outside there. It's not very convincing though, so I wouldn't be afraid to take that one. You get a lower high here, but you've moved too low, really. And that's a big bar. You got to go low right at the short, right at the lows. So I would wait, and guess what? It does come back again and gives you a failed second entry long, a relatively small bar. So I like going short right there. And you're just looking for it to make a new low, but in this case, it just keeps going. And like I said, this is not a real convincing close outside, so this thing may continue to go lower. But that turns out to be a really nice trade. So if you caught that one, you definitely get a runner and look at it go. And then it comes back again. It's really just a first entry there, so wait on a lower high, which comes here. It went higher first, then went out the other side. I like having a sell stop right there and going short. And again, it just takes off. I would have expected it to bounce right here, but it shoots on through and you get an overshoot. So, and then notice what happens here. This is tempting to go long. It does get that little drop lower. If you want to be real aggressive with this overshoot, you might go long there. I think it's a big mistake because look, you had a similar setup here. Wasn't quite that far away, but you got a little overshoot, and if you went long there, you got burned. So you just never know. It could have ticked up and ticked down and then gone higher. They like to trip you up there, but if you want to be super aggressive with that, with all those matching lows and that little one tick lower that turns up, they probably trap some shorts because that's an ideal trap kind of spot because you get all these traders that keep trying to go short at the low. They keep watching this going down and they keep saying, if it goes lower again, I'm getting in. I've watched it. And they finally get the nerve to get in here and then it reverses on them. So hopefully you weren't the ones that, if you follow what we do, you know not to go short right there. If anything, you'll go long. But really, you're better off just to sit tight. So, but notice what happens. It shoots back up and shoots right through the EMA very strongly. You get a first entry short, then you get a second entry short. And even though that's not really a failed second entry short, you would expect it to go lower here, but instead it turns up. So that's a failed second entry short. So I like considering a long here. It's a little bit aggressive still because this trend line is still here, and we just came off what looks like the upper side here. We didn't quite get to it, So you wouldn't surprise you to go higher here. It wouldn't surprise me to get a reversal here with this overshoot. Plus, you've got what looks like a little bit of a close outside here. So, but this is still a little bit aggressive. You really need a little more evidence because that's a pretty strong move down, and we went right back through the EMA. But you would expect if this was a good setup, it would have continued to go lower, and it didn't. And we end up getting outside, and it tries to go lower once, twice, three times, and then it makes a higher low with a bullish bar. I like going long right there. It's still a little bit aggressive because look how sideways that is. All the overlap, and you got stems on both sides, so that's really congestion. So I think you're still better off to wait, although that one bouncing right off the EMA with a higher low there, especially with that being a double top, so it's also a second entry long. So you might consider that one, but it's still not a whole lot of evidence here to say that we're reversing yet. So I think you're better off to wait. And then, of course, I would have drawn this trend line off these highs and drug it down. And look what happens. You get this little trend coming back. You get a close outside, move to a new low, and then you get that little last jog down. And all of this is right at that trend line if you copy it and bring it down. And so I like going long right there. You get 3 different touches off that trend line, plus they all close above it. And off it goes again. And that's a really nice move there. You would have had a runner, and it just takes off. Notice you got a new low, so there's a first entry short, a second entry short that fails, and it actually goes lower, then turns and goes out the upper side. It's still a little aggressive because we're a good bit away from the EMA. You've already had a close and a move to a new high, close outside the trend line and a move to a new high. But it is a failed second entry short. We're not quite back to the upper side. There's some reasons to consider that one. If you'd have taken it, it would have worked. You definitely don't want to be going long there. And then, of course, it rockets right back down again. You actually get an overshoot here. So you would think we were going to probably get a reversal here again. But this thing just kind of works sideways for a while before it takes off again. And really in this area in here, you just need to use your short-term trend lines and so forth. But notice how we're coming down. You get a close outside a new low, and then you get a higher low here that actually turns down first and then goes higher. I like going long right there. Notice it comes back again, so you get a failed second entry short there. And if you draw that trend line, it's a third confirmation of it. So I like going long there. You get that little jog back right here. But I didn't really like that one because you got pretty much a double top here, and that's a very neutral bar. But when it breaks lower again right there and then turns and goes higher, it's pretty obvious we're probably going to test that high at a minimum. So I like adding, jumping back in here again or adding on if you're not already in. And if you're not already in, I like getting in right there. And of course, it makes the new high and then gets a big move down. And you get a first entry short and then a second entry short. And this is a failed second entry long here. Notice that high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. So that's a failed second entry long. So I like going short right there, thinking that we may get another leg down like this one. But instead, it bounces right there. And notice it's kind of hard to see, but notice on my chart how it broke lower first and then turned and went out the other side. That's a almost sure trap. And notice that it's a double test of that level. So, and the EMA is getting real flat again. So I like that one just to look for it to come back to these highs again. And you could have ridden this one. This one just keeps going. And notice what happens. You get a first entry short, then it moves higher. And you get a second entry short that breaks lower first and turns and goes out the upper side. Right off that short-term trend line, if you drew it off those first 2 closes. And again, that's a failed second entry short. You do have to go long at the very high, but I like that one. Notice we're just making higher. We got a higher low than that low, higher low than this one, higher low. We're probably going higher. And I always showed you all those measured moves, and we aren't anywhere close to those yet. So I like going long there. And this thing just takes off. And I really didn't see anything else I liked until we got into the 2 o'clock hour. We just kind of we're going sideways. This is your first close outside, so you'd expect it to probably move on up a little more for a new high, but it's not very far to a new high after a break of this little short-term one. And so that's really risky going long. And then this is just a first entry. You pull back first entry, and then it comes back another first entry, and then we're just kind of going sideways. And you do get a failed break lower here, but that bar is just a little bit too bearish for my taste. So you really need you need a more bullish bar down here, in my opinion, to take that. If this would have been a bullish bar or a real small bar, I'd have said take it. But under the circumstances, I really just don't like it. And then, of course, we do make a higher low here, and there's two hidden legs back there. And that's a fairly decent bar, so you could probably argue for that one. It's just right at the 2 o'clock hour, so you might argue for that one to be green. But I just think when you start getting late in the afternoon around 2 o'clock, you got to be really careful about your choices. So, especially when there's been so many good trades already today. I mean, there was some pretty good trades in here. You had to be a little patient early on. We didn't get our first trade till after the regular open. So, we were 15 or 20 minutes into the regular open, 30 minutes maybe. And, usually by 7 o'clock you've had a couple of decent trades, but it just didn't happen today. It took a little while to kind of figure out what was going on and get a good setup there. But from that point on, it was pretty good. It was really the entire morning till about 9 o'clock was a little bit just kind of sideways iffy. But from 9 o'clock on, it was a pretty good day. So you just had to be a little patient this morning. And one thing I hear more than any other thing that when traders start to have success, they talk about they learn to be patient. And so the worst thing you can do is overtrade. So you don't want to overtrade. And it just pays off to sometimes wait. And a lot of times that keeps you out of traps and you spot the trap. You'd be surprised how many times it's like right here, it's real tempting to go short. By just kind of waiting, you see that next trap and that short trap because you're expecting prices to go higher. But at the same time, you got a failed second entry long. And all that is just a little extra jog to test that low again. And when it can't go lower another time, off it goes to the upside. And that's what happens. Your better traders will wait on this setup rather than trying to enter here because so many times you may be wrong here. And so your better, smarter traders will wait for another attempt to go lower that fails. And you see a good many of them probably jumped in here, but then it starts backing up because your really smart traders are waiting. And then when it goes higher again, look how they come pouring in now and it rockets up. And plus all these shorts that got trapped here by being afraid they're going to miss a trade and not being patient, and it suddenly takes off and they all have to exit. But if they'd just been patient and waited for a little clearer sign, knowing that we were expecting prices to go higher here, because you just had a break of this little trend or little channel working up. So by just being patient, you get that nice jog up and you don't get trapped going short here. Yeah, pretty good trading day. Looks like the volatility has been back the last few days. I noticed, man, look at this day y'all had Friday. Wow, that is a lot of volume. Let me back out a little bit. That is a lot of volume and a lot of movement. So it was a really good day Friday. Looks like Thursday wasn't that kind of volume. Still some good movement, but it didn't have the volume it had Friday. Look at that day. That's the 21st. I don't remember what day that was. 21st was Wednesday. So yeah, y'all had some fireworks while I've been gone. Pretty bland day that day. Another good day there. 18th was the previous Friday. Or no, that's the 19th, the previous Monday. That was last Monday. So yeah, it looks like I missed some fireworks last week. I hope everybody had some good trading while I was gone. Like I said, I'm glad to be back. It feels good to kind of be back to a normal day, so to speak. We are coming into the Easter holiday. Good Friday will be Friday, and I'm pretty sure the market's closed. I haven't looked at the schedule yet, so it'll probably be a short week. But regardless, I'm back. I'm here till Thursday, regardless, unless I believe the holiday usually starts on Good Friday, which will be Friday. So I'll have to look at the trading schedule. I haven't looked at it yet. That should put us here through a regular week on Thursday, unless there's something going on Thursday I'm not aware of at this point. But we'll clarify that tomorrow. I'll look at the trading schedule and see what the holidays actually looks like for the CME. I believe it's usually the market closes early on Friday, and Thursday's generally a regular trading day. Although usually a lot of times a lot of traders will start their weekend early and Thursday will be kind of quiet, but we'll see. I'll be here regardless as long as the market's trading, unless my wife has some kind of emergency. But anyway, glad to be back. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.